I felt her eyes on me from across the fire, burning hotter than the flames between us. Laura, my boss's wife, had been watching me all evening with that knowing smile, while Carter sat oblivious, nursing his whiskey. The mountain air was crisp, against my skin, but something about her gaze made warmth pool in places I hadn't expected. When she stood and walked around the fire toward me, her silhouette dancing in the flickering light, I knew this corporate retreat was about to become something entirely different. Before we dive into what happened next, do me a quick favor and hit that like button. Trust me, you're going to want to stick around for this one, and subscribing means you'll never miss stories like these. Now, let's get into it. The company retreat had been Carter's idea. Team building, he'd called it, though I suspected it, was more about getting away from the office politics that had been suffocating us all. 3 days in a secluded cabin in the Colorado mountains, just the core team. What I hadn't expected was how different Laura would be away from the polished corporate events where I usually saw her. Here, with her hair loose and wearing jeans that hugged her curves, she seemed more real, more approachable, and definitely more dangerous. Haley, her voice was soft, melodic, cutting through the crackling of the fire. Come sit with me. I glanced at Carter, but he was deep in conversation with the other team members, gesturing animatedly about quarterly projections. Laura patted the log beside her, and something in her expression made it clear this wasn't just a casual invitation. Moved around the fire, conscious of how the flames cast shadows across my own body, highlighting the low neckline of my sweater. When I settled beside her, she was closer than I'd anticipated, her thigh brushing against mine. Beautiful night, she murmured, but her eyes weren't on the star-filled sky above us. They were studying my face, tracing the line of my jaw, lingering on my lips. Very beautiful, I agreed, though I wasn't talking about the night either. Her key hand found mine, fingers intertwining with a casual intimacy that sent electricity up my arm. You know, she said, her voice dropping to barely above a whisper, I've been watching you at the office. My breath caught. Watching me? The way you move, the way you think. You're captivating. Her thumb traced circles on the back of my hand, each touch sending ripples of warmth through me. I've wondered what it would be like to get to know you better. Away from all the corporate nonsense. I should have pulled away. Should have made some excuse about being tired. Instead, I found myself leaning closer, drawn by the heat radiating from her body and the intoxicating scent of her perfume mixed with wood smoke. What are you suggesting? I asked, though part of me already knew. Her free hand came up to brush a strand of hair from my face, fingers lingering against my cheek. I think you know exactly what I'm suggesting. The fire popped, sending sparks spiraling into the darkness, and I became acutely aware of how isolated we were. The others had gradually drifted toward the cabin, their voices growing fainter. It was just us now, the flames, and the tension crackling between us like live wire. What about Carter? I whispered. Laura's smile was enigmatic, almost predatory. What about him? Before I could process what she meant, her lips were on mine, soft at first, tentative, giving me the chance to pull away. When I didn't, when I found myself responding instead, the kiss deepened. Her mouth was warm, tasting of wine and something distinctly feminine that made my head spin. My hands found her waist, pulling her closer, and she responded by shifting until she was practically in my lap. The kiss broke, leaving us both breathless, foreheads touching. God, you're even better than I imagined, she breathed against my lips. Laura, Shh. Her finger pressed against my lips, silencing my protest. Don't think, just feel. Her hands were exploring now, tracing the curve of my spine, the swell of my chest through my sweater. Every touch sent jolts of sensation through me, awakening parts of myself I'd kept carefully controlled in the office environment. When she began tugging at the hem of my sweater, I helped her, suddenly desperate to feel her skin against mine. The mountain air was cool against my exposed skin, but her touch was fire, warming me from the inside out. Beautiful, she murmured, her hands mapping the contours of my body with reverent appreciation. Absolutely beautiful. I was lost in the sensation of her lips on my throat, her hands on my skin, when I heard the footsteps. My eyes flew open to see Carter approaching, and I started to pull away, but Laura's grip tightened, holding me in place. It's okay, she whispered. He knows. Carter stepped into the circle of firelight, and I expected anger, jealousy, some kind of confrontation. Instead, his eyes were dark with something else entirely. Desire, approval, as if this was exactly what he'd been hoping to find. Don't stop on my account, he said, his voice rough with barely controlled want. He settled onto another log, close enough to touch but far enough to observe. You two look incredible together. Laura's laugh was low, throaty. I told you she was special. The realization hit me like a physical blow. This wasn't some spontaneous moment of passion. They'd planned this, discussed it, And somehow, that knowledge only made it more intoxicating. "You talked about me?" I asked, looking between them. Carter's gaze was intense, unwavering, extensively. "We've both been interested in you for quite some time." Laura's hands were still moving on my skin, and despite the revelation, despite the surreal nature of the situation, I found myself responding. Her touch was confident, knowing, as if she understood my body better than I did. "So what happens now?" I whispered. "Now," Laura said, her lips finding the sensitive spot just below my ear. "We show you exactly how much we've been thinking about you." The next few minutes blurred together in a haze of sensation. Laura's mouth was everywhere, mapping my body with kisses and gentle pressure that left me gasping. Her hands were equally busy, finding sensitive spots I didn't even know existed, building a tension inside me that threatened to overwhelm. Carter watched it all, his breathing growing heavier, his hands clenched as if he was fighting not to join us immediately. The knowledge of his observation only heightened everything, making me feel powerful and desired in a way I'd never experienced. When Laura guided me down onto the blanket she'd spread beside the fire, I went willingly, pulled into her orbit by forces I couldn't resist. The flames cast dancing shadows across our intertwined bodies, creating an otherworldly atmosphere that made everything feel like a dream. Her lips found mine again, deeper this time, more demanding. I responded in kind, my hands tangling in her hair, pulling her closer. When she broke the kiss to trail her mouth down my throat, I arched beneath her, seeking more contact. "That's it," she murmured against my skin. "Let go. Let us take care of you." Her hands were patient but determined, building my arousal slowly, carefully, as if she had all the time in the world. Every touch sent waves of pleasure through me, each one stronger than the last, until I was trembling beneath her. It was then that Carter finally moved, unable to hold back any longer. He approached slowly, giving me time to object, but I was beyond coherent thought. When he knelt beside us, his hand coming to rest on my shoulder, I turned to meet his gaze. "Are you sure about this?" he asked, and I could hear the strain in his voice, the effort it was taking him to maintain control. Instead of answering with words, I reached for him, pulling him down to join us. His kiss was different from Laura's, hungrier, more urgent, but equally intoxicating. Between them, I felt completely enveloped, surrounded by warmth and desire and a kind of attention I'd never experienced before. Laura's hands continued their exploration while Carter's mouth claimed mine, and I found myself caught in a rhythm that felt both natural and revolutionary. They moved together as if they'd done this before, complementing each other's touches, building my pleasure in waves that threatened to consume me entirely. When Laura's attention became more focused, more intentional, I gasped against Carter's mouth, my body arching involuntarily. The sensation was overwhelming, a building tension that seemed to start in my core and radiate outward until every nerve ending was alive with electricity. "Let go," Carter whispered against my ear. "We've got you." And I did. The release that overtook me was unlike anything I'd ever experienced, rolling through me in waves that left me gasping and trembling. Laura held me through it, her touch gentle now, soothing, while Carter's hands stroked my hair. But they weren't finished with me. As my breathing began to return to normal, I felt them shifting, repositioning, and I realized the night was far from over. Laura moved first, settling beside me with a knowing smile. "Your turn to explore," she said, guiding my hands to her body. What followed was a blur of sensation and discovery. Under their patient guidance, I learned the geography of Laura's body, the places that made her breath catch, the touches that drew soft sounds from her throat. Carter watched and participated, his hands joining mine, creating a symphony of touch that left all of us breathless. When Laura reached her peak, her back arching, my name falling from her lips like a prayer, I felt a surge of power and satisfaction that was almost as intense as my own previous release. Then it was Carter's turn, and I found myself the center of their combined attention once again. Laura's hands guided me while Carter's body responded to every touch, every movement. The three of us moved together in a rhythm that felt both primal and sophisticated, a dance of desire that spoke to something deep and fundamental within me. The fire had burned lower by the time we finally collapsed together, a tangle of limbs and satisfaction. My skin was flushed, my hair wild, my body humming with the afterglow of multiple peaks that had left me feeling simultaneously drained and energized. Laura's head was on my shoulder, her breathing slowly returning to normal, while Carter's arm was draped across my waist, holding me close. The silence between us was comfortable, satisfied, filled with the crackle of the dying fire and the distant sounds of the mountain night. "That was," I began, then trailed off. not sure how to finish the sentence. Perfect, Laura supplied, pressing a gentle kiss to my shoulder. Better than perfect, Carter added, his voice rough with satisfaction. I wanted to ask what this meant, what would happen when we returned to the office, how we would navigate the complex dynamics this had created. But in that moment, wrapped in their warmth, I found I didn't care about the complications. All that mattered was the contentment flowing through my body and the way they held me like something precious. Eventually, we gathered our scattered clothes and made our way back to the cabin. The others had long since retired, and we moved quietly through the darkened rooms. At the top of the stairs, Carter paused. "Your room or ours?" he asked quietly. I looked between them, these two people who had just turned my world upside down in the most incredible way possible, and made my choice. The bedroom was spacious, dominated by a king-sized bed that seemed to beckon us. What followed was slower, more intimate than our passionate encounter by the fire. Here, in the soft darkness, we explored each other with languid touches and whispered endearments, building new rhythms, new connections. Laura's body was a map. I wanted to memorize, every curve and hollow a discovery that sent fresh waves of desire through me. Carter's strength was a counterpoint to her softness, his hands sure and gentle as they moved over both of us. We made love in various configurations throughout the night, sometimes with me at the center of their attention, sometimes watching, as they reconnected with each other, sometimes all three of us moving together in perfect synchronization. Each encounter was different, unique, adding new layers to the complex web of desire we were weaving. As dawn began to creep through the windows, we finally collapsed into exhausted sleep, our bodies intertwined beneath the crisp mountain air that drifted through the slightly open window. I woke to the smell of coffee and the sound of quiet conversation. For a moment, I was disoriented, unsure where I was or what had happened. Then the memories came flooding back, and I felt a flush of heat that had nothing to do with embarrassment and everything to do with renewed desire. Laura was sitting by the window, already dressed, a steaming mug in her hands. Carter was nowhere to be seen, though I could hear his voice drifting up from downstairs. "Good morning, beautiful," Laura said softly, setting down her coffee to approach the bed. I sat up, suddenly conscious of my nakedness, but Laura's appreciative gaze made me feel desired rather than exposed. "How are you feeling?" she asked, settling on the edge of the bed. "Incredible," I answered honestly. "And a little overwhelmed," she nodded understandingly. "It's a lot to process, but I want you to know that last night wasn't just about physical desire for us. We genuinely care about you, Haley, both of us." "What happens now?" I asked, the question I'd been avoiding finally surfacing. Laura's smile was enigmatic. "Now we go back to our regular lives, but with a new understanding between us. And," she paused, her expression becoming more serious, "I have a proposition for you." "What kind of proposition?" "Carter and I have been discussing creating a new position in the company, senior creative director with significant autonomy and a substantial salary increase. We think you'd be perfect for it." I stared at her, trying to process what she was saying. "Are you offering me a promotion because of last night?" "I'm offering you a promotion because you're talented and deserving," she said firmly. "Last night was separate, though I won't pretend the two aren't connected. We value you, Haley, in every way." The implications were staggering: a promotion, a new dynamic with my boss and his wife, and the promise of more nights like the one we'd just shared. "I need time to think," I said finally. "Of course. Take all the time you need, but know that whatever you decide, last night was real. Our feelings for you are real." She leaned down to kiss me, soft and sweet, and I tasted possibility on her lips. The rest of the retreat passed in a blur of meaningful glances and subtle touches. To outside observers, nothing had changed. Carter remained the professional boss, Laura the charming wife. But between the three of us, there was a new current of understanding, a shared secret that made every interaction charged with hidden meaning. On the drive back to the city, I stared out the window at the passing landscape and thought about choices, about desire, about the unexpected turns life could take. By the time we reached the office building, I'd made my decision. I accepted the promotion, and everything that came with it. Now I'm curious, if you found yourself in a situation like that, with your boss and his wife both pursuing you, would you take the leap? What would you do in my position? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one and love hearing your perspectives. And if this story got your heart racing, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and ring the notification bell. Trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next. Thanks for being here, and I'll see you in the next one.